Guys, okay, so I'm actually going to, um, yeah, we'll just keep you on for a little while. Although, when and if Dutch Gunner shows up, that might change things. Actually, let me hide your camera because it's unfortunately tied directly to Discord, so I can't talk to anybody else while you're showing. Hold on. Um, there we go.
To
You are
talk
now,
to the people asking questions.
yes, we're also now unmuted, or you're now unmuted, so we are good to go, 100%.
Wonderful. Well, DM Portella says, regarding new player retention, what is CCP doing to help with this that you are happy with, and what do you think they could do more of? What would you consider pushing in this new CSM cycle? Something that I'm not particularly thrilled with is the way CCP, the main way CCP advertises this game. CCP advertises this game with gigantic news website 10,000 person battles. And I want CCP to not set that expectation for people, because the reality of gigantic gigafights is that it takes hours and hours. And even for the people that take part, they get fed up quite quickly of those. That's something I want them to shy away from. I don't want them to do as much advertising of gigantic battles. Something that I would like them to do is I would like them to continue to work on the UI of Eve in a way that does not remove the complexity of the game, but better presents it.
Right.
As an example, the way that skill training is presented in the game is a little bit difficult for people to get right in their get correct in their heads, as far as compared to other games that have skill progression. I don't want to bring back the colorful interface, exactly. I don't want CCP to make it so that your gun skills go up the more rats you shoot,
Right.
but I also don't want to just see a 5 pixel high box that shows what level your skill is on there. I want to see a better user interface that puts into people's heads exactly what is happening with skill points. And I'm pleased to say that not only just a few weeks ago, CCP, it was just a concept. They read out a concept, and that concept sounds like it presents the existing mechanics far, far better and more interestingly than the way the game does currently with the UI. No specifics, obviously, for obvious reasons, but if they were to carry out that concept, I think that new players would have much less mental legwork to do to understand this process. I want them to do more of this. I want them to do more of simplifying how things are presented, not simplifying the game straight up.
Okay. Yeah, and I very much agree with that. The way I like to say it is, what if Eve was a learnable game? One of the problems is that the Eve UI doesn't actually give you the breadcrumbs and the answers and the feedback that you need to be able to learn the game through just gameplay. So if
Mm.
the UI was presented in such a way that Eve was a learnable game, not just requires you to know what to ask ahead of time, basically, or requires somebody to
And
find you and start teaching you.
and you know, I'm not unaware of the fact that designing a really good UI for a complex system is actually the job that requires deep creativity and understanding. It's a difficult job to make a good UI for any product. We've all seen simple products that have terrible UIs. It's not just complex products that can have terrible UIs. CCP has been making progress with the UI of Eve by replacing various parts of it. Something that I would, if I was to pick a part of the UI aside from the skill training, I think that people and places is long due an update. I would very much like to see people and places split out to two different things, people and places separately, mainly because with people, I want people to also show people you have recently teamed up with.
Right.
I would like there to be more opportunities in Eve to be randomly paired with other players to do some easy abyssal content or something that requires two players. What I call it is I call it Eve speed dating for new players. And what I want it to be is I want it to be 5 minute abyssal content where you are randomly paired with somebody else who's queuing for it. You run it, it's easy. It takes 5 minutes. And if you had a good time with that person, I want you to be able to go to your people UI and see the people you recently ran this content with. So you can start to form bonds with people in a much more natural way, because bonds with other people is what keeps you in this game.
Yeah, I really like that idea because like people, social, like that space could be everything from recently fleeted members, your court members, your alliance members, your contacts, your alliance contacts, you know, your trade history, like all of that could be ways to present people. And places can not just be bookmarks, but it can be places like landmarks and other, you know, ways for CCP to put breadcrumbs as
It's
to where you might
absolutely
want to go.
ripe for a redesign, isn't it?
It absolutely is. In fact, it feels counterintuitive, and I catch myself very frequently to being like, "Where are bookmarks stored? Oh yeah, with contacts. Where are contact stores? Oh yeah, with bookmarks." It makes it so that one or the other, whichever way, when you go to the interface, you don't one way or the other. One of the paths doesn't lead you to where you feel that you should go intuitively. So when you go into the Neocom, you're like, is
Yeah.
that a social thing? Is it a personal thing? I don't. What exactly is this? Um,
Yeah, and the contacts system is a little bit outdated, um, in terms of, years ago when they stopped you from being able to see when anybody was online. That was one of the major uses of it. So it's kind of it has a bit of uselessness added in there by the removal of that feature, which was a good change, but it's ready to it's very much ready to become a useful feature of Eve with a better UI. That'd be awesome.
Good point. So before we get too deep into this, I also want to. It is Friday. This is kind of the Friday show, and every Friday, my goal is to aim to answer the question: what is there to do this weekend? Like, if assuming that they're not part of a block group, being told by their leadership to form at this time, but like, what's going on this week? What would be the right thing for people to do this weekend? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, something that CCP would very much like everybody to do is go and vote for Eve Online in the Webby Awards for their Project Discovery.
You're a better
Yes,
shill than
Project
I am.
Discovery is
Holy shit.
pretty Project Discovery is pretty neat, and the way they've been using it is pretty cool. Yes, the Project Discovery is mainly a PR campaign for Eve Online, but I would at least very much like to reward CCP for having put it in the game, because a lot of people like to do it and it has some real world impact. So why not go over to the Webby Awards and vote for it for them so they can get a little bit of publicity from it?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So first of all, it is doing quite well. So the chances of it winning is pretty high, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't go vote, because if we can like overwhelm it, then that just is another sign of how passionate and committed the Eve community is. And that alone will be a news story. And every single time that Eve Online gets into the news that isn't some big fleet fight or some big betrayal, it causes people that see it to go, wait, I thought Eve was just a bunch of spreadsheets in space, or I thought Eve was a bunch of nerds being crappy to each other or whatever. Like, what do you mean doing citizen science? I didn't even realize this was part of the game. And so every time we can do something like that, it's great for us all. So I'm really excited to see
Let's give
CCP win
them
this.
that one.
Yeah,
Come on, I've
this
got a
is
lot of things to complain about for CCP, but I'll give them this one. That's pretty cool.
there. You go. All right. And then also, this weekend is, this week was the second half of the industry change. And so while I don't necessarily recommend, starting primary production right now, like, if you didn't start your supers or capitals or battleships or faction equipment last Monday, you may want to take a deep breath for a bit before you get into it again. But I will say that if you have the capability of reacting doing the base reactions that just came out. That stuff is extremely lucrative right now. If you have primary resources, extremely lucrative right now. If you have pirate battleships ready to sell or anything ready to sell, the problem is that the market has no idea what's going on right now, and just everything is going insane. Like 10 Ferox's total on in all of Jita at one point level of insane. And so pretty much at this point, just pay attention to the markets, pay attention to the secondary markets. And if you look more than 2 minutes, you can likely find at least some sort of opportunity to make stupid amounts of money right now. Especially if you happen to have some stuff kicking around in your hangar that you haven't gotten around to selling for a while. It's ridiculous how much crazy stuff is happening on the market this weekend.
Got a few more to whip through here. Yasir says, as a semi-old Eve player, albeit not 2003, what is your opinion regarding the lack of availability of small gang PvP these days? Can it ever come back? It can come back. Well, it's still here, but it's a shadow of its former self. It can come back when CCP stops designing the game to require you to join very big groups. There's nothing any of us can do to make people leave their big groups, but we can remove the need to be in a big group to progress in this game. And I think that the need to join a big group is due to wanting to use things like rort calls, but I'm not going to go all over that again. But also by the way that CCP puts in front of everybody that plays the game, they put in front of them this idea that progress in EVE Online is getting a Titan. That's what you're working towards. Whereas that shouldn't be the measure of progress in this game.
I feel like you skipped the important part of that question. So I'll read the more important part of this question. We can address it directly, which is rumor has it that you were a purveyor of the Swedish small roam safety dance whilst in not even going to try. Is this true?
In Nibbletech.
Nibbletech. Okay. If so, can you please dance the safety dance tonight?
I can't dance the safety dance, but I can put on a hat to prove that I am not a man without a hat, as the original band name was. I can put on my fantastic Heineken hat at the very least, and hopefully that will appease.
Are you suggesting that you cannot dance if you want to?
I can't dance even if I did want to.
Okay, well, disappointment, downvote, lost my vote, bottom of the ticket.
Damn it!
No, I'm just kidding.
I do want to. Very least.
I do want to. I guess I forgot to say this at the very end, but I do want to wish you the best of luck, and I'm excited to continue to see the CSM campaign. As I was being very legitimate in the fact that, if anything, you've shown the most initiative of any CSM candidate to make sure to get out there, do the interviews, which tells me A, you care a lot about the CSM, but also B, you respect the community. You respect the act of doing these kinds of interviews and what people, the audiences of people like DTM and myself think about things. And I think that that's incredibly important. While we will while we will be having these interviews, it's worth noting that you were the one that was proactive enough to be the first.
And maybe that's going to come back to haunt me, because there is such a thing called the recency bias.
It's true.
Have you heard of this?
Yeah, no, you do have to have a final blitz right at the very end if you want to get across the finish line, for sure.
Yeah, I have to keep myself fresh in people's minds. And so going first is out of eagerness to talk with you all, rather than out of sneaky campaigning.
That's true. I didn't mean to suggest that like there is some sort of like behind it, but it just shows an honest sincerity behind your drive. There's a lot of people that
something I don't want to do. Yeah, something I don't want to do is I don't want to tell the community, I don't want to tell you guys that I am here to bring your problem to CCP. I think it's actually quite important that I specifically know the type of things in EVE that I want to change. I don't think that a campaign based on anything vague is actually going to be um, particularly potent while dealing with CCP. I think that for maximum effectiveness, somebody like me needs a cause, and I feel I've got a cause.
And obviously, enough people agreed last year to get you onto the CSM, and uh, whether or not you get voted onto the CSM this year will be a clear demonstration of if that clause is well supported or not.
I hope so. I hope so. Let's see. Let's see how many people I've impressed. Let's hope.
Also, while we're in this in between period, I want to address some of the uh, more streamy stuff that's been going on. I tend to try to not, or I turned off all of that stuff during the actual interviews, like the alerts and stuff like that, so as to not. I don't want any like subscriber thing to get in the way of you making your points and when it gets uploaded to YouTube out of context. But that being said, there was quite a bit to talk about, which is that there's quite a few follows, and that is because Zapando rated us with either 81 or 110, depending on which entry you ask. And Miranda Lorian came in and gave me a sub for 17 months. Thank you both for that.
Wow, nice.
Miranda Lorian, if you're still here, thank you and love you. And please go follow both Miranda Lorian and Zapando. They're both awesome streamers and worth your time. And thank you for that.
I don't want to skip over. I've got one here from Fixo. It says, do you have any opinions on NPC nullsec and how CCP could make this area more alive and attractive to new alliances starting out? As it stands, it's a desolate wasteland. Also, what's your opinion on instanced PvE? Do you feel this just removes people from space and takes away from the actual core gameplay of what EVE is? NPC nullsec, I've had great times in NPC nullsec in the past. In the few times over the last few years that I have passed through NPC nullsec, it has indeed been deserted. But I think it rather boringly it comes back to the fact that if you're going to try and make money somewhere, sorry to keep bashing the same thing, but the way that EVE is designed at the moment, the best way to progress and make a bunch of money and stuff is to join a big group and go where they are again. I feel that the encouragement for super large groups and EVE sucks the life out of so many other places,
Do,
and I
do you
think
think
that's one of the main things.
sorry. Do you think that ISK generation is the only way that CCP can motivate player behavior?
I think that that's the way they've designed the game to motivate player behavior. They've put expensive ships at the top of the prize tree here, and they encourage
Sure, but
they present these things as an end game to reach for, and that's the way that they build in to do it.
But what about things like achievements, putting your name on the board? The first to do something, or cosmetic attraction, skins, intangible rewards. The fact that you can get skins by doing events, and you have to do the event to get that skin because it applies on redemption. So you can't just sell it on the market. The only way to have that skin is to do those things. Do you believe that the player base wants those kinds of rewards, or is the only kind of reward
Yeah,
that players process ISK generation?
people definitely want these kind of things. I know whole bunches of people who collect skins and will go and do events for the specific rewards rather than just buying them off the market when they're not available. People definitely like it, but let's be real. This is shallow kind of that's a shallow sideshow. We're largely here to play the game, not to just get a tick on
Right.
our list of things that we have done. I mean, I think that a big difference between what the game encourages now and what it used to be before that is that the goals and progression that people aimed for was they wanted to perform grand actions that would affect other players in the game. Most obviously, PvP is something that directly affects other players in the game. And it was performance in PvP for so many of my peers that was the progression that people were aiming for. They weren't aiming to endlessly accrue assets. They were aiming to make achievements in combat.
Right.
And
Well,
when that was the case, it meant that PvE was a means to accomplish this goal here. Whereas now people are encouraged to consider PvE and asset accumulation as the goal, and PvP as the means to acquire it. It's flipped around.
yeah, I think that the word, I think you used the word earlier. Oh no, I just lost my entire point. It just flushed out of my brain. Um, Novelty. You used the word
Mm,
novelty earlier, and I think that that's actually the key point
yes.
there. Like if it's if you're doing something for an achievement or to get the cosmetic, that's going to get you to do it the first time, right? But
Yeah.
like you're going to go to
It's
the
not
Eve
novelty
Gate.
after that.
Exactly. You go to the Eve Gate, you get your achievement, you're like, cool, I've been to the Eve Gate. Well, why do you go to the Eve Gate tomorrow? The next day, the next day, the next day. The reason why you keep doing something is because it sustains, it provides you something long term. So the novelty is one kind of reward and will get somebody to check something out. But ultimately, if you want something to become somebody's occupation, the thing that they do, not just a thing that they have done or an activity they want to try, but actually the thing that they do and put some work into it, then it needs to then obviously it's going to be processed like a job. Therefore, what do I get out of it, right? How rare is this thing that I get? How valuable can it be? How can I get more out of it? And how can I do it in a way that costs me less than other people, so that way I can be competitive with it, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing for 14 years, longer than 14 years in total, and I'm still here, and I still want to fight, and I still undock to do combat because that's what I like to do. I like to try and achieve, to stretch, to test myself, and be proud of what I've done there. I'm not undocking to further my cause to get a whole big bunch of ships. That's boring. That's what
Right.
you do with them that CCP should encourage is the goal.
And just out of curiosity, since we didn't talk about this during the stream, just what do you do with your ships? Like when you log into the game, what do you find yourself doing a lot? What do you like what is your activity?
Undocking them and going to find something to fight. I've recently been on a bit of a solo kick the last couple of weeks, and Lowsec is an ideal place to find other frigates to fight. It's some of the most frantic content in combat in the game because of the low hit points and the high speed of these ships. So I've been having a lot of fun doing that, but something that is severely lacking is small and mid-scale brawling fleet content, which is really that's what I really like to do in this game. But everybody's just got so gosh darn big that you can't really find that anywhere. And as people grow in size, so many things become long range rather than brawling, and it's just not the same.
Yeah, and it is worth noting that like that gameplay like has a way to get it. Like Faction Warfare during its heyday was basically a generator of that exact kind of content. And it's probably the
It
reason why
was
you loved it and I loved it, and it was
non-stop skirmishing.
it was
Yeah.
amazing. And I think that that's the thing, is that like during that time, the prevalent theory in the public sphere was that like nullsec was what it was all about. And so like a lot of the time that gameplay went unnoticed by the player base during that time. And now that that golden age is over, there's so many of us that played in faction warfare and low sec during 2013 to 2016. That's like, no guys, like I have seen the top of the mountain. Like this is the fun gameplay that everybody's been complaining, like
Hmm.
wanting. And that is why I say things like, as faction warfare lives, so does, low sec lives, as faction warfare dies, low sec dies, because not just faction warfare puts people in there to hunt or, puts people out there to interact with, but the actual faction warfare sites themselves counteract a lot of the things that suppress things like small gang, tight, or brawly, sort of natures, and develops those kinds of fights. But the problem actually is not that the systems don't work, but because the motivations aren't there. Over time,
Mm.
the leadership of the sides of faction warfare, especially on the Galente Caldari side, have over time lost interest in the actual act of system ownership itself. They didn't care about it as much, which made it so that people weren't fighting for it in the same sort of with the same sort of motivation, which really stymied that content. If you look over at the Amar Mimitar side of the war zone right now, even now, like that's where the good low-sec content is, and because that's where the people who are in faction warfare care about winning, not just about whether or not they get a good fight tonight, but they care about winning. And so if we can instill, if we can generate, if we can motivate player organizations to take on the flags of the four empires, to say, I joined faction warfare because I want to see the entire war zone green or blue or red or yellow or whatever color you choose, that's what's going to fix this more than, and every mechanical change is just how to get there.
Exactly. I mean, I think that there's a significant lack of objectives in low security space at the moment, or perhaps we could extend that to anywhere. I mean, something that we've seen is that it took 4 years for a war on the scale of World War B2 to begin. Why is that? I mean, that I don't know how anybody can regard that length of time, essentially a Cold War. I don't how many can view that as healthy for the game. People should be at constant war. It should be the point of the game. And yet we see, even in low sec, many months between major conflicts. And because what objectives are there? If the objective is just a war based on a narrative, that's clearly not working in this game to keep on stirring conflict.
Right.
We need people to have things to lose, things to gain by being defeated.
Right. In nullsec, especially prior to this war, we really got to a state where in order for me to win, you don't have to lose, right? Like how well I work on my own group and my own resource acquisition and my own power acquisition is the way that I do better. That like expending my resources, disrupting you, actually just costs me resources, because how well you're doing doesn't actually influence how well I'm doing. I should focus on myself. And that's why you saw this rise of the empires that basically just sat in their castles for a long time until finally, broke down
Because
in World War B.
Their castles could support that many people.
Right, but there was
Why
no
is
there was
it
no there was no like thing
yeah,
for them to fight over, where it's like in order for Test
yeah,
to have it, that meant that goons can't, because only one person can have it. And that didn't exist for a long time.
yeah. Back in the day, one of these things was the way moons worked before active mining. I won't go completely over that point again. I think that at this stage, everybody knows and misses the value that of content and conflict that passive moon mining used to create. They used to be valuable. People used to take them, and especially in low sec, they used to change hands quite often. They were a constant source of combat, and it was great, and it meant something. You would win, and you would get something for it. You would get a moon that's worth something. You would lose a fight, and you would lose the moon. There were consequences. Whereas now, what Snuff's down here in Amamaki, in the same system I live in, and they've been fighting Wrecking Crew.
Right.
For what? For what?
Well, and that's the thing.
I mean, props to them for attacking, but they don't get to gain anything from it. It's just kills, and just getting kills isn't enough in this game to get people out of their chairs and active.
Like I could take a moon from Snuff, but the problem is that that's not good enough, because I still have to mine the moon, and they're going to be able to drop on
how
my
are you
miners.
going to do that with 100 supers available on top of you? Yeah,
exactly. And that goes back to that idea of like when people can bring nullsec force into lowsec, then that means that it requires you to have like I'm not saying that low sec is a step like it goes high sec, low sec, null sec. It's not. It's not necessarily a progression. But I think that we can agree that having to have a null sec empire in place just to be able to justify having a single moon in low sec with enough protection to be able to actually mine it and have that be a requirement. Well, just go get your own supers to defend it. If I'm going to do that, then I'm just going to have my null sec empire. Like what?
Yeah, I don't. Maybe the stakes need to be lowered. Maybe everything shouldn't be about Rorquals and supers.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be great if we could just lower the stakes a little bit so that people wouldn't be so afraid of losing occasionally.
That is a good point too. Although, like I said, I did manage to go and ninja mine with a skiff in low sec and was pretty successful. So, I mean, it's probably happening. It's just those people aren't going to be talking about it. Yeah.
Chronicle, when did I kill your Sweeple? Is he still watching?
I have lots of follows too. Thank you all for everybody who's joining us down the rabbit hole today. Just the other day.
Just the other day. Oh yeah, because wasn't it under Amar control at the time, so you weren't tethered?
I just don't want keep stars in low sec. I don't want CCP to remove keep stars from low sec. I want us to remove keep stars from low sec, just to be clear.
I wouldn't. I would be quite pleased to have no keep stars at all in the entire game, but let's tone that down a little bit. I think that keep stars shouldn't be anchorable at all in low sec or high sec.
I mean, high sec, it really is like a show of force. It's more of a it's a dick waving more than anything else, right? Like there's nothing about a keep star that is functionally like gives you some sort of advantage in high sec over a Fortizar, outside of like it's technically harder to assail, but like if somebody's going to attack it, they're going to attack it, whatever. But like ultimately, you went with a keep star to have a keep star in high sec, not because you needed it over a Fortizar for some reason.
It's just, I mean, we've got the Tranquility Trading Tower, and I mean, why do you think it's not fought over?
Right. Well, it's not fought over because when they fought over it, the mechanics played out as such that it was easier for them to collude over it than to fight over it, and thus they did.
It's because, yeah, it's because fighting over it was pure poison for everybody involved. It was not a fun experience. So why are they still allowed to be in high security space if they are horrible to fight over to the extent where they don't get fought over? Why are they still here? CCP needs to just do something about it. I mean, it's making about 50 billion ISK a day in profit at a conservative estimate. And if the Oz is still watching, then he'll be able to confirm that in chat. And that is just absolutely, given that it's not fought over, I don't understand how it is ignored and is left to be allowed to be a thing still.
I mean, you could argue that at some point it might actually end up being worth being fought over. That the position that the nullsec blocks have done about it is kind of an excuse, and maybe over time that might change, or some other change might make that happen. It's hard to say. Like the reason why nullsec says the reason they're doing any given thing may not hold true forever.
I don't know. I think I can completely believe that fighting over a high sec keep star is a horrible experience. I don't have
absolutely.
any problem believing
that. My point is that it is also possible that right now they're all benefiting from it in a way that they're not prepared to deal with not having it right now, and therefore it's not worth fighting over it at this moment with everything else that's being fought over.
No. They had these agreements in place long before World War B2.
I understand, and yes, You're correct too, but I guess my point is that I never trust on the surface when they say these kinds of things, because when it's important to them, they'll figure out a way to do it. But do you really feel that it
It
being a
wouldn't be EVE
Fortizar?
Online if people weren't scheming all the time.
Exactly. Do you feel though that that it being forced to be a Fortizar would make that much difference about whether or not it was assailable, given the fact that the thing that made it non-assailable was the forces that nullsec brings to bear when they fight with that kind of thing, and its influence on highsec?
These are dangerous. These are dangerous types of questions to ask me, because I don't think that even large citadels like Fortizars have any place at all in high sec either. I mean, at the very beginning, I expressed my main point about citadels, which is the absolutely unlimited nature of how many can be anchored everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's just absolutely terrible for the game. And guess what? You can also do it in high sec, where it's way, way more complicated to be allowed to assault them. Amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that it's time for us to transition over to the next interview. I've got about 10 minutes before that gets started. So if Dutch Gunner could jump into the Eve Universe general Discord, then I can start rearranging the stuff. And
Thank you,
it's
everybody.
been a great chat. And I'll make sure to post so there'll be 3 videos today, basically the formal interview, this middle part, and then the Dutch Gunner interview. So you get extra
Wonderful.
FaceTime because, again, that initiative. All right.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Good luck, man. All right.
Thank you.
Let's see. And Dutch Gunner's in.
Hello, Dutch.
Good evening.
I wish you a very entertaining interview. It certainly has been for me.
We'll see what direction we'll be going.
Glad you enjoyed it.
I did. All right, you guys, have a good chat, and Dutch, we should have a conversation soon and just see how things are going, all right?
Fair enough. We'll settle date soon enough.
See you guys later. Thanks, Ash. All right.
Let's see. I had a second game capture. That is not it. Boo. Hold on one second.
There's still time. Don't worry about it.
Window capture. Probably should have done this during a break or whatever, but we'll see how the sausage is made for a little bit.
Yeah, hey, don't worry. I mean, we set up for 2300, so
Yeah.
that's at least 5 more minutes.
at least. No, yeah, but I'm just talking to the audience too while I'm doing it. Okay, so you're Dutch Gunner in game, right?
Uh-huh.
Is that one word?
Correct.
Oh, okay, that's why.
And apparently not too apparently there's now a second one.
And then I go
But yeah, that's the one.
I go to filters. I add a chroma key. Oh, nope, not that one. Add a chroma key. Boom. And just about like that. And then boo. I don't have a good block in front of you. Hold on, actually. All right. So there's half of it, the answer. And I need a black box. Where's my black box? Color source. Hold on a second. Okay, go have a popsicle. Black box. No, you can have the first thing. Boom. Dutch Gunner. Now then, all I gotta do is get rid of this logo and bring in your logo, which I actually already have because you are actually the one of the logos that subs get is the Arataka Research Consortium because of how much you guys have done for the lore and for the current ongoing precursor crisis. I'm sure we'll talk about.
It's fitting to have that background. Yeah, just don't forget about removing that space between Dutch and Gunner.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. That wasn't right. There we go. And this, put it right there. Come back here, close this, put this all away, hide that, and we're almost good to go. All right. Did I miss anything? Let's see.
Almost as if it's time to be this way.
All right. Well, so what I'll do is I'm going to actually do the like Eve Universe logo intro again, and then jump straight